Yes, sir.
Going back to the way back, you're talking about the confiscatable part.
Yeah.
So why is unconfiscatable important? And why would that be important to Americans? Has that ever happened in American history where something's been confiscated?
Yeah. So the question is about unconfiscatability. Yes, in 1933, FDR made it illegal to possess gold and force people to turn their gold in, basically. Not everybody did, but that happened. But it's not so much a risk today, I don't think, in America. It's more of a risk probably in other countries, in third world countries that have tin pot dictators that would try to... Well, just like now, in India, they are forcing the people to turn in their 500... I think they're 500,000... is it renminbi? Is it rupees, whatever it is? The Indian currency. They're forcing people to come in and bring in their 500,000 notes, 500,000 rupee notes, or whatever it is. And that's what it's for is to catch people that are dealing in the black market. So you have to come in and you have to prove how you got the money, and then you trade it for their new money, whatever it is, just to try to root out illicit activity or whatever. With Bitcoin, again, that can't happen. Nobody can force you to trade it for something else or force you to trade it for a different type of currency. So yes, it is. It's unconfiscatable, and it's probably more that particular thing, at least for now, is more useful in third world and in emerging economies instead of in the U.S. Yeah.
Why did India ban it?
They didn't. They talked about it. Well, I mean, if you think about it.
What they have against it?
Yeah. Countries, governments. So the question is, why did India ban it, or why would they want to ban it? Countries have a huge vested interest in being able to print money, and that money be worth something. Okay. To the extent that they can print money, just like, again, this stimulus bill, if you can print it and then you can direct it toward the things that you want, that gives you a huge amount of power, okay? And so it is it's a direct threat to the power of governments to direct new dollars toward the things that they want, okay? And same thing is true in India or any other country. And so that's why there is some reluctance on the part of countries to want to allow this to happen. So,
why is there only 21 million? And
Only
how are they mined?
How are they what?
Mined.
Okay, yeah. How are they mined? Okay. Why are there 21 million Bitcoin, and how are they mined? So in the beginning, when Satoshi said, "Let there be Bitcoin," he wrote the Bitcoin white paper, and he kind of created a roadmap for how this monetary network would be created. And I'm not sure exactly why he picked 21 million, but he probably did some calculations. I mean, it's really, I don't have time to go really deep into it right now, but it's fascinating to look at how he created it and all the things he took into consideration when, way down the road when things would change to be where they are right now. But in the beginning, whenever Bitcoin was first created, you just had one computer, one server running the Bitcoin network. And it's pretty easy to run a network that just has one person that uses it. Well, then they had two, and they had three, and they had multiple servers that were running the software. And every 10 minutes, they started playing. Kind of back to the game story of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a game, or money is a game. You had all these people competing to mine the next block, okay? And what it means to mine the next block is the code creates a puzzle that all the people, the operators on the network have to try to solve, okay? And the puzzle, as the network grows, gets harder and harder and harder to solve. And so they have to expend a lot of energy to solve this. It's an algorithm. They have to solve a very complicated algorithm, and it takes huge amounts now of electricity to solve that equation or that algorithm. And whoever wins, whoever solves the code or the problem or the puzzle, wins a reward. And in the beginning, it was 50 Bitcoin. And then 4 years later, it was 25, and then it was 12.5, and now it's 6.25. And so every 10 minutes, somebody wins, and somebody gets 6.25 Bitcoin, which is $350,000, something like $370,000, 380, 90, whatever it is. So that's how much Bitcoin is created every 10 minutes, 6.25. And as we approach the number 21 million, I mean, you can look at it mathematically and see if every 4 years the amount that gets created every 10 minutes cuts in half, then you never get to 21 million. Or when you get to 21 million, that's all you have that's left. I don't know why he picked 21 million though.
That was just an arbitrary number.
I mean, I'm sure it was thought out, but yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why he chose 21 million. I mean, you could have chosen really any number, as long as, I think though, what was kind of fascinating about it is how it would be distributed out over time.
Right.
To where, and as it became accepted and as people valued it, the value started going up and more people started joining the network and more people started mining for it, and it created competition, and that increased the energy output that would be put into the network. It also increased the difficulty of mining the next block. But it always is timed. The difficulty is always being adjusted to make sure that the blocks are mined every 10 minutes, which is another aspect of the code itself. It's really fascinating. That it gets really complicated to try to understand how all that works. But suffice it to say, the miners themselves, they're the ones that keep the network safe, and they're the ones that they help the transaction. They manage the transactions, add transactions to the blockchain. If you think about blockchain itself, that's what it is. It's what it sounds like. It's a chain of blocks. And each block has all the transactions. It's kind of like a ledger. If you wrote down all the transactions, in a block, you'd write down all the transactions on this page when it's full. And after 10 minutes, you take that block and you put it over in the stack of transactions that have happened before, and then you start over on the next block, and then it gets added to the blockchain. And you'll just do that over and over and over again. And I don't know how many blocks are on the blockchain right now, but there are millions of them, I think. Yeah.
So why can't you just go back and how is it saved? You can't just go back and change those.
Yeah. So and another thing, once the block gets discovered and added to the blockchain, it gets propagated out to the network. Now everybody has a copy of it. Okay. So if anybody makes a change to any one of the blocks in the blockchain, and the nodes are all connected together, and if any of them disagree, like if all of them disagree and you got one out there that has an odd transaction, they'll kick that person out, or they'll kick that node out of the network until they come back and agree with the blockchain, or with the entire network of all the other nodes.
Is that what decentralized means?
Yeah. That's why we call it decentralized, because it's not, there's not Bitcoin Corporation. There's no central server anywhere where if you had access to that server or that small group of servers, you could control the network. In order to effectively, hack the Bitcoin network, it would take, it's insurmountable, basically, the amount of networking or processing power you need to attack the network successfully over time.
Why can't they kill it? I mean, if North Korea, for instance, can keep most of their citizens from the internet, or China, for instance, can ban Twitter, why can't they just stop Bitcoin?
Right. Yeah. So the question is, why can't countries stop Bitcoin? Like, why, if North Korea can keep their people from? Well, you could, if you blew up an EMP and destroyed every device that was able to access the internet, you could kill it. But you'd put us back in the Stone Age, basically. So the cost of killing it is way higher than the benefit.
So VPN solves that.
Yeah.
People, right?
Sure. Yeah. Right. As long as they have access to the internet and have a computer that can run the software, that's all you need. And you can you could hide behind a VPN. You could, there's lots of ways you can mask or obscure what you're doing on the network. And so as long as you have access to the internet, and I mean, you just need one. If they went around and tried to root out all the Bitcoin servers, I mean, first of all, they couldn't do it. It's just be an impossible task, because there are so many. We don't know how many there are. There are some known ones, and then there are many unknown ones that behind VPNs that ping their location all over. There's just no way to find them, and so you'd have to kill them all at one time. Again, you can do it with an EMP, but that's really short of that. I can't think of any other way you could effectively stop the Bitcoin network permanently.
It would have to be a worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide EMP. Yeah, so blow up an EMP on every continent that would reach but even that probably wouldn't work because I'm sure. Well, I know there are Bitcoin nodes in Faraday cages that can protect from EMPs.
You and I talked about the EMPs one time, and you mentioned that I was looking for that term, the Faraday cages.
Yeah.
And so they've taken precautions to those EMPs.
Yeah. There's EMP resistant cages that you can put
See, I didn't think
servers
anything
in.
was resistant to an EMP.
Yeah. Basically, you can, if you wrap it in aluminum foil, that's all it is. It's pretty easy to protect stuff from EMP.
Do we know for sure that Satoshi was an individual?
No. Do we know for sure that Satoshi was an individual is the question. No, we don't know. It could have been a group of people. It likely was a group of people. I mean, to me, it's unlikely that one person would come up with something this complex because as you look into it and you understand how it works, I mean, it's fascinating. The rabbit hole is very deep, and I would encourage everybody to go look into it because it's just a fascinating technology.
And Satoshi's Japanese?
Well, I mean, that's the name. The given name is a Japanese name, but we don't know if we don't know his country of origin or their country of origin. It could have been a group. It could have been a group from all over the world. It could have been. You could have had multiple people that didn't know who each other were, all working on it together. I mean, we don't know anything about who the person or group of people were who took the moniker Satoshi Nakamoto. So, yeah, there was one guy whose name was Satoshi Nakamoto actually that the media found and thought that's him, but it wasn't. Well, I mean, he kind of fit the profile, but it wasn't. It wasn't him. They're pretty sure. I mean, he didn't. They figured out pretty quick it wasn't him. Okay, so let's game this out. If you're Satoshi Nakamoto, are you going to be willing to talk to a journalist if they'll buy you lunch? No. I mean, you're the richest person in the world if you're Satoshi Nakamoto. And this guy was willing. Well, will you buy my lunch? He's like, yeah, okay. So he went and talked to him, and they pretty quickly figured out this isn't Satoshi.
So what did Buffett say about Bitcoin?
Buffett says, this is hint for the trivia. Buffett says that Bitcoin is rat poison squared. So,
why do you think that legacy guys, Buffett and others, why do you think there's such resistance to the idea that this is real? Yeah. What do you think
why? So the question is, why do legacy people that have been in the investment world for a long time think it's not real, or why are they doubtful of it? I mean, I think it's just as simple as they just don't understand it. I mean, I just think it's anytime a new technology comes out, you think, and it's logical to think, well, this can't be real. It can't do what it says it can do. What if it gets hacked? What if the government bans it and they go in and they go to the Bitcoin warehouse and shut it down? That's just the way, that's all they know. And so I think, Buffett's not immune to that. And I think that's why he's, I don't want to, get into like stereotypes and stuff like that. But if you don't understand the technology and don't understand how it works, you're not going to get it.
What have you seen from the legacy systems, though, the banks, investment banks, recently? Is there any indication that there's any shift in their thinking?
Yeah. So the question is about legacy banks and has there been any shift in it? And the answer is yes. There's been huge shifts in it. In fact, just today, Morgan Stanley came out and said, was it Morgan Stanley? I think. Yeah. They came out today and said that they were going to offer their high net worth clients access to Bitcoin and through their accounts. So there's that. PayPal has adopted it. You can buy it on PayPal now. Paul Tudor Jones has come out in support of it. Bill Miller, one of the greatest investors of all time, is a Bitcoin bull.
Is it just because people are asking for it and so they're making it available? or are they getting behind the idea?
Well, it's both. People are wanting it. Demand is driving some people to offer it, just because, like, if somebody wants something,
Yeah.
there's going to be people there to provide it. So I think that's part of it. But I think more than that, some of these guys have come out in full-throated support of it, like Paul Tudor Jones and Michael Saylor is probably the most vocal proponent of it. Now, he founded MicroStrategies back in the 90s, I think it was the 90s or 80s, something like that. And he's a multi-billionaire. MicroStrategy is a Fortune 500 company. He's the first one really to publicly talk about it and put it on his balance sheet as his reserve asset. And he went all in. He was trying to figure out what to do with his cash back in the crash back a year ago now. And he started looking at where he could put his money, and he started thinking about his options, and he thought about stocks, thought about gold, thought about fixed income, he thought about all these things, and he started learning about Bitcoin, and he just went all in on it. Which I wouldn't recommend anybody do, but yeah.
So can you think of anything in yesteryears that, we talk about Buffett,
Mm-hmm.
he can't get on board about this. Can you think of anything to compare it to yesteryears that maybe folks had the same ideas?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they were wrong?
Oh yeah, easy. The internet.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's probably, if you want to think about the type of revolution that Bitcoin could potentially be, I think it's as revolutionary as the internet. And I mean, there's one of the first books, the earliest books written about it is Bitcoin, the Internet of Money. Okay, and so what did the internet do? It just connected us all together, right? Where we could all be connected and have immediate interaction with each other. Okay, and we could share information. So it was an informational network. Well, Bitcoin is a value network. Okay, or could be. So, and if it succeeds at that, I mean, that's, yeah. And so people, so people were wrong. Like the naysayers of the internet back in the 90s, and I guess the 90s really, I mean, it's existed before that, but they were wrong about the internet, and I think they could be wrong about Bitcoin as well, the naysayers, because I think it's it could be potentially as revolutionary as the internet.
So,
do people need to be worried about like another .com because now there's all these different types of cryptocurrencies out there?
Yep.
So is there another possibility of a bubble?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, there will definitely be a bubble. And we saw it in 2017. There was a bubble in these assets. And so in 2017, and the question is there going to be a bubble in Bitcoin? And the answer is yes, or in other cryptocurrencies. In 2017, the entire market of all cryptocurrencies went from $15 billion to $850 billion in 1 year. Okay, so it was about a 40x increase in 1 year. All right, we started in 2020 the entire cryptocurrency. And by the way, it went from 850 billion back down to, I think it topped out at a little over 100 billion, around 100 billion. So it went from 15 billion to 850 billion, back down to 100 billion. Okay, so we started last year at probably around the $200 billion mark, something like that, 200 billion. Do you know where we're at right now? We're approaching 2 trillion now. So I mean, it's the entire market in the last year has we've almost 10x if we haven't already 10x. So and Bitcoin is, from a year ago today, Bitcoin was worth about, I can't remember if it dipped down to $3,800 briefly, either just within a year. What day was that? The 12th?
March.
I think it was March the 12th. It dipped down to $3,800, and so now it's trading at $58,000. So, but yes, there will be another bubble. It will pop. Many people will lose huge amounts of money, but some people will get filthy, stinking rich.
Because that's when they're getting in?
Huh?
Because that's when they're getting in?
Well, the people that lose, well, yeah, I mean, when the bubble's going to bust, and probably, right now there's over 8,000 cryptocurrency projects, and 99% of those are going to go away. But there'll be a few, so if you think about it, let's go back in our minds to 98, 99, 2000. You saw names like Yahoo and AOL, AltaVista, Pets.com, Netscape, Microsoft, though, Google, Firefox. Well, I don't know. Was that a company back then? Mozilla Firefox. You had Microsoft, you had Amazon, you had Netflix. Maybe I'm not sure exactly when Netflix was founded, but you had tons of companies in this revolution, and you had a bubble though of it got up to $6 trillion in the Nasdaq. That bubble was a $6 trillion bubble, and then it crashed, and it lost 85% of its value. Same thing happened in 2017 with Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin particularly, but with the cryptocurrency market. It lost over 80% of its value at one point, 85%. And so, yes, there's going to be a bubble, but there's probably going to be some projects that make it, and that's the.
We talked about the coin itself.
Yeah.
What about the whole transit system, the way that it's digitally traded?
Okay.
What is that called as far as don't some people invest in that itself?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can invest in it by buying it in like on the network. You do on network transactions. Like I could send it to you. If you have a Bitcoin wallet on your phone, I could send it directly to you, or you can buy it on PayPal, and you don't really own it then. PayPal owns it for you, and you have it's like a custodial arrangement. But then also you could buy equipment that runs the network and be a miner and participate in the network that way and win the mining rewards.
That's kind of what I was referring to. There's some sort of technology that people are investing in. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it's ASIC chips, and like it's just CPU processors that run the software and do the mining. And so you can't. I mean, if you wanted to start that, it would take you 18 months to get the equipment that you need, and by then who knows what's happening. So it's dominated by huge money mining outfits, people that have been doing it for a long time. I mean, you can, in theory, you could add to a mining pool, so you could be a node on the network that adds your processing power to a known pool, and then you would share in that pool's rewards. So, there's an economic value for every unit of energy that gets expended into the Bitcoin network. It's very small though, so I really wouldn't recommend people do it that way.
I guess maybe I was referring more to how would a person invest in that technology. Maybe I'm not.
Well, I mean, you could buy AMD or Antminers. Yeah, there's all kinds of different companies that create these processors that are specifically made to run Bitcoin.
Those are the names I've heard, but I could not remember.
What? Riot?
RIOT.
Riot. Oh, right. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. There are different companies. There are like there's one Marathon, and I think it's another company that's big into mining. And so that's another thing that's interesting about the economic development of this. Early on, the miners were all bootstrapped. They just, had this laptop and they ran Bitcoin software on that laptop. Well, I mean, it won't do you any good now, but early on, you could make plenty of Bitcoin. Of course, it wasn't worth anything. So, but now it's so expensive and so valuable that the players that are in it, the barrier to entry into mining is very high. And so it's almost not worth it.
So 2 questions. One, if Bitcoin is technology,
Mm-hmm.
if you assume that technology always gets better all the time,
Yep.
improves, then why won't Bitcoin lose in the end? Because it's where it is, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It's the Model T.
Mm-hmm.
How does it lose?
Right.
Why wouldn't it?
Well, yeah. Okay. So the question is, Bitcoin is technological, or it is technology. Why wouldn't it lose? Because it can change is one thing. The software can be upgraded. They can actually change the rules for how it operates, certain aspects of it. Not like account balances and 21 million. That's not going to change. But they can change they could change the cryptographic security that protects the network, that protects the transactions that happen. So a lot of people, and I should have brought that up in one of the risks that people talk about, but I didn't get specific on it. A technological risk. Some people say, well, what if you had quantum computers? Can quantum computers hack the network? Well, in theory, it's possible, But before that happened, they would just upgrade the cryptography to be quantum resistant.
So why wouldn't you choose a different cryptocurrency?
Okay.
If Bitcoin
Sure.
can change, but requires this massive amount.
Yeah.
85% have to agree.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, it's possible. It's theoretically possible that you could have a competitor come in and create a better cryptocurrency that would take away market share of Bitcoin itself. I think it's unlikely at this point. It would be really difficult for somebody to do that, just because Bitcoin has first mover advantage, it has brand recognition. It's got all kinds of head starts to any kind of competitor that could happen. If somebody else came up with a better way to do it, though, it's theoretically possible, but just unlikely in the short term.
The Amazon of
Yeah.
internet retailers.
Yeah, exactly. It's the it just passed the $1 trillion market cap, and so it's just going to be really hard to supplant it. I think at this point, I'd not say it couldn't happen, but it
So
could.
fourth question on a series of two questions
Uh-huh.
is, why do I care as a U.S. citizen?
Yeah.
My dollar works pretty well.
Mhm.
I'm going to swipe my card here.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I don't have a problem getting banked.
Sure.
I don't
Yeah.
have a problem sending you dollars
Mhm.
on Venmo or PayPal.
Mhm.
You know, it maybe bleeds into the, is this really a medium of exchange
Mhm.
issue or
Yeah.
is it a store value issue? But
Yeah.
why do I care? As a U.S. citizen,
As a U.S. citizen,
why
why
do
do you
I
care? Yeah. As a U.S. citizen, why do you care about this stuff? Well, I mean, there are multiple answers to that question, and for some, our monetary network works pretty well, but there's just a world of people out there whose monetary networks and policies do not work at all. Ours is not great, but it's certainly not the worst. And so, you might think, well, ours works great. Well, yeah, it does. It works okay. There's some flaws in it. But there are countries around the world, even right now, that, in Nigeria, I think just recently, they banned it in Nigeria, but usage has just gone up. They tried to ban it, but usage went up, which is not too surprising. I mean, Nigeria probably doesn't have the infrastructure that a country like China could do. If China can't do it, then Nigeria probably can't do it either. So, it's probably going to be more useful in terms of practically to people in, again, emerging third world type countries. But for us, I mean, it's potentially a store of value. So, that would be the if it wins, if it accomplishes its goal of becoming, a world reserve asset, then you can potentially put your money, not investment advice, you put your money in something that can't be debased, can't be inflated away. So
Is that why they call it digital gold?
yeah, that's why they call it. So yeah, that's a great point. They call Bitcoin an example or a way of describing Bitcoin as digital gold. So yeah, it's a scarce digital asset.
But Jerome Powell says that printing money or the M2 money supply does not affect inflation long term.
Right.
So what do you say to that?
Yeah, I would say that's foolish. He needs to go back and learn Econ 101, supply and demand. Hint, hint. All right.
So there's Dogecoin. That's the only
Doge.
other one I know
There we
about.
go.
Is
Yeah.
that what it's called? Doge?
Yeah, Dogecoin. Hold on a second. Let me.
I wouldn't be traveling with that.
Do you own Doge? It's 6 cents. I
Yeah,
think it's
Dogecoin.
right now.
Yeah, so
You should.
Doge.
So that's right.
Yeah.
Dogecoin. Yeah, so Dogecoin, all of these cryptocurrencies, they all have their own monetary policy. Okay. And so right now, there are, I think, 6 to 8 million Dogecoins created every day. Okay. So you see
not
the
scarcity.
It's the scarcity. Yeah, the scarcity is the problem with Dogecoin. In addition to that, 60% of the supply is owned by 3 people.
Really?
So it's a meme coin.
Now, Mark
Buffett's
Cuban,
right about that. What?
Mark Cuban, he
Yeah.
started accepting it.
He started accepting it for the Dallas Mavericks
There
game.
you
Yeah. It's a meme coin. Elon Musk tweets about it all the time.
Okay.
It's a meme coin, what you call it, kind of like GameStop. Like
Okay.
It's a
It's a fad. It's like it's a movement. It's just it's got energy that way.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Stumped him.
Yeah.
I mean, finally.
Yeah.
He was over there buying it.
He was up there buying it. Because I have a client that done that.
Yeah.
And he told me
Yeah.
about it, but he learned about it through playing games, like the GameStop
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Sure.
So cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So we hear about cryptocurrency.
Mhm.
You heard they talk about Bitcoin.
Yep.
So is all cryptocurrency the same?
No. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
What's the difference here in crypto? When I'm talking about crypto.
Yeah. So the question is, you're talking about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies. What's the difference between Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies? Well, yeah, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. There are many others. The second biggest one is Ethereum, and Bitcoin is kind of a world reserve asset. Ethereum is a platform for running smart contracts. Okay, and this could be in the trivia too, but Ethereum, Ethereum is it's a little more complex than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's simple. It's a simple. It's complex in the way it works, but it's simple. I send a Bitcoin to you. This would be really expensive, but you know for sure that I don't have it anymore, and that you have it, and that you have access to it. I mean, that's really all it does. It solved the double spend problem, which means with digital assets, it's hard to think about them as scarce, but that's what Bitcoin did. It solved the scarcity problem, the lack thereof of digital assets. But Ethereum is a smart contract platform. There's all kinds. There are utility coins, like coins that you can use to stake in certain ecosystems and get discounts on transactions and exchange rates, and just all like you stake one utility token and you get you can stake other assets and get different rates of return based on how much you stake. So utility tokens, there are privacy tokens, there are third generation smart contract platforms like Cardano and EOS, and there's all kinds of different cryptocurrencies and platforms and use cases out there. So
What's the difference between proof of work and proof of stake?
Okay. So proof of work, it's like we talked about with Bitcoin, the difference between proof of work and proof of stake. With proof of work, what protects the network is the expenditure of energy. And the way you participate in the network is by expending that energy in return for getting the rewards of the blockchain rewards. In a proof of stake network, you stake your asset. So instead of staking energy, you stake your actual asset. Okay, and so you put that at risk. If you do the wrong thing, you lose your asset instead of spending. Yeah, it's collateral. So you collateralize the trust with the asset itself. Whereas proof of work is what you have at risk is your energy expenditure. So it's a little different. I mean, it's very different, but it's two different ways of ensuring fairness and trustworthiness of the network.
Cover your assets.
Yes, that's right. So yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it. Do we have any questions on the video? Has anybody submitted questions online? No questions? Okay. All right. Well, I will post this video, produce it and everything, but thank y'all for watching along with us, and we will see you guys next time.